Hello everyone and welcome to the third Finance and Business 2030 event held in Indonesia, which is part of the Building Resilience series hosted today by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Indonesia. My name is Iqbal Nasution and I'm an HR and Talent Performance Manager at Deloitte Indonesia, and I'm also Indonesia Deputy of Diversity, Equality and Inclusion for Southeast Asia. Furthermore, I'm a proud One Young World Ambassador and I'll be your host today, taking you through this exciting webcast. We are so proud to be hosting the FinBiz2030 event for the third time, particularly as it fits in perfectly with the theme of this year's APAFest, Chartered Accountants as Difference Makers. It's amazing to see how many people have joined us. We have over 1,300 attendees joining from over 30 countries today, which is exceptional. For those of you who don't know, Finance and Business 2030 or FinBiz2030 is an initiative led by One Young World and Chartered Accountants worldwide. Their mission is to unite and mobilize leaders across these two sectors to tackle the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and they do this through the FinBiz 2030 task forces that are operational around the world. There are FinBiz task forces up and running globally, with over 70 talented young leaders driving forward impactful initiatives. This year's webinar will focus on what it means to change for sustainability and the role of the accountancy profession in maintaining trust in an era of sustainability. Sustainability should be at the forefront of everyone's agenda, and yet, for many businesses, both large and small, it's not. Chartered accountants are perfectly placed to help address this. They are a nexus for change within an organization. As a trusted advisor, chartered accountants are at the center of sustainability reporting and are key to helping companies embed sustainability-related goals and regulations and perform on-the-ground monitoring and measuring. With ongoing social and economic upheaval, it is vital that sustainability does not slip down the agenda. We are calling on you to be an agent of change for a better future. Before we hear from the speakers, we have some housekeeping notes to run through. We'll be running polls throughout the webinar on Slido, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can scan this QR code to take you to the polling questions. It would be great to have as many participating as possible. For those of you having any issues with bandwidth, you can lower the resolution of the stream on your computer so you can see us better. We encourage you to share your favorite quotes or moments from this event on social media by adding the hashtag FinBiz2030 and tagging us in your post. You can put that on One Young World, Chartered WW, and IAI News. Our first speaker today is from the United Kingdom. It is Michael Iza, Chartered Accountants Worldwide Chairman and CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants England and Wales. Michael, over to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Iza, the CEO of the ICAW and the Chairman of Chartered Accountants Worldwide. I'd like to welcome you to our FinBiz2030 webinar as part of this year's APAFest. It's the third year we've teamed up with One Young World and our colleagues in Indonesia to bring you a lively, inspiring and informative session. This year's theme is Change for Sustainability. Sustainability is everyone's responsibility. All chartered accountants, whether newly qualified or seasoned professionals, are agents of change and accountability, now more than ever before. You are the nexus within your organisation, whether large or small, and it's up to you to communicate with a variety of stakeholders and to guide your business towards a more sustainable and resilient future. Whether you and your organisation are just beginning your sustainability journey or are already well underway, there's always more to be done as we learn more about the risks climate change poses and the need to drive positive change. At Chartered Accountants Worldwide, we understand that it might seem like an insurmountable task, especially if you're just starting out, which is why we've been working hard to bring you a brand new Chartered Accountants Worldwide Sustainability Hub, giving you access to global information at your fingertips. The content has been organised to make it easily accessible. Please do go over to our website and take a look. During today's webinar, You'll hear from a variety of young finance and business professionals, all making a difference to sustainability in their fields. I hope that you find this session inspiring. Remember, your sustainability journey starts or continues here. It's time to make a difference and help the world towards a more sustainable and resilient future. But before we move into the panel discussion, I'd like to hand you over to Kate Robertson, co-founder of One Young World, to say a few words.
Thank you, Michael, for your truly inspiring and encouraging words. Now, it wouldn't be a FinBiz webinar without a welcome from Kate Robertson, One Young World's visionary co-founder and CEO. Kate, over to you.
Thank you so much, Iqbal. Congratulations, and thank you to Michael as well. As I always say at the start of these, to Michael, to Ruth and their team here who started this initiative of FinBiz. So from our perspective with One Young World, and I know some of you may have been on previous FinBiz calls, our issue at One Young World is finding, connecting and promoting young leaders in every single country in the world to secure a better future for everybody. And as big as it sounds, the reality is, if everywhere we go, everything we do, we find people like Iqbal, we're finding better leaders and helping them on their journey and supporting them. And I hope those of you who've had a chance to look at the One Young World social media at the moment will see a whole team of One Young World ambassadors who are at COP in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. And last week we had groups at a conference here in the UK called Anthropy. So we try to use the opportunities that come our way as an organization for people like you, young people like you. And my particular concern and my particular devotion, if you like, to the FinBiz project and to chartered accountants is this. Nothing is going to start going right in the world. Nothing is going to really get fixed in any dimension, whether it's the impact of climate change or people's mental health or pandemic recovery. It doesn't matter what it is that young people want to do and want to get fixed. If it can't be accounted for honestly and openly and transparently, then corruption wins the day. Corruption wins every single day, every single week, in every single country in the world. Now, how do you stop corruption? You cannot change human nature. Some people are good, most people are not corrupt, but people who are corrupt tend to be quite clever. And if they can get away with it, that's what they do. So who stops them? Who audits and accounts corruption? You guys. And my view of you people and your profession is that without the chartered accountants getting on board with the things that you want done as young people, nothing can be fixed. If you look at carbon today, the big challenge, the single move that we need governments to make, and they needed to do this 15 years ago, and they're still not going to do it at Egypt, which is just driving me out of my mind. We need carbon pricing. We need carbon pricing. And the people who sort out how the accounting of that is done is going to be chartered accountants. So in my dreams, I go chartered accountants worldwide, start driving governments and driving business leaders. Let's have carbon pricing. So as soon as you do that, a whole chunk of emissions is going to go down. It's just a fact. It's going to work. So I truly think that chartered accountancy is a profession that can make a bigger difference than any of the other professions. So when I see young leaders like Iqbal who say to me, oh, well, you know, I'm a qualified chartered accountant, but maybe I don't want to do that anymore. You know, maybe I want to go into the voluntary sector, or you cannot make the difference you can make leaving this profession behind. So I do hope that all of you, as chartered accountants all over the world, understand, really do, I'm sorry, that's me, really do understand the precious jewel that you grasp in your professionalism and how the world can look to you. You know, I come from a country where it took less than 8 years for a corrupt government to destroy a G20 economy, less than 8 years. And chartered accountants were involved in accounting for and auditing that fraud. And yes, hundreds of them lost their jobs. But what's the point of that? There's no point of that. The country's economy is gone. So I cannot stress the importance of your role. I hope all of you understand that when it comes to making a difference, you actually hold the tools to make the difference. And we here at One Young World Organization are really proud of our work with FinBiz and really keen to meet all of you, see all of you. From my perspective, from our perspective, the more chartered accountants, the better. So there you go. And I love that sign, Iqbal, behind your head. Chartered accountancy is a difference maker. Chartered accountants are difference makers. Yes. Iqbal, back to you.
Thank you so much, Kate. I still in awe because you're so inspiring for us. So thank you so much. We are so grateful for the fire that you bring to these events and for all that you have done to support young leaders, especially people like me all around the world. Thanks so much, Kate.
No, thank you. Our thanks go to you. Good luck, everybody. Have a grand session.
Thank you, Kate. Bye. It is now time to hear from our headline speaker panel today. We have 4 fantastic leaders who are sustainability change makers in their industries. Okay. First up, I'm delighted to introduce Robin Spearings, Program Manager at the Sustainable Flight Challenge. Robin is leading the initiative to transform an entire industry and accelerate sustainable aviation by bringing together and challenging each and everyone, including herself, to step up. She's changing the game and dares the industry to treat sustainability like safety. She does so with a lot of enthusiasm and experience in organizational and agile transformations, digitalization, and product and service designs. Robin? Hi, Robin.
Hi, nice to see you. Great to be here.
It's lovely to have you with us. Now, not everyone will have heard of the Sustainable Flight Challenge. Could you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Of course. And by the end, everyone will love it, hopefully. The Sustainable Flight Challenge is an initiative to accelerate sustainable aviation. And it was inspired by the Great Air Race of 1934 from London to Melbourne, where pioneers proved that long-distance commercial aviation was possible. And we have now a team in KLM that said we can use that same pioneering spirit to demonstrate that we can fly sustainable. So we will push the boundaries by challenging ourselves and others to up that game of sustainable aviation. And it was lovely because our former CEO, Peter Elbers, he embraced this idea and he challenged SkyTeam, which is the airline alliance that we belong to, and all the other CEOs of those airline members to execute their most sustainable flight possible. And that competitive element helps people to come into action because there's one thing that all CEOs love, and that is to win. But the beauty of it was that they couldn't lose because either you win or you learn, and preferably both, but you're best in class and you get the recognition for that, or you're lagging behind and you win because you have access to all these best practices and solutions that are shared with you, because that was the precondition. Every solution on those flights will be shared open source with everyone. And by focusing on a specific flight, we offered airlines the possibility to achieve a goal and to have a playground to test things that they usually wouldn't. So this really led to something great. And I think the best way to give you a feel on what the results of that first year were, I think we should show a short video.
không toàn cầu SkyTeam vừa phát động chương trình.
航空公司参加了永续飞行航班的挑战。
Today's our big day for the Sustainable Flight Challenge.
Sustainable Flight Challenge, un progetto
Part of the JV Alliance's Sustainable Flight Challenge.
Sustainable Flight Challenge.
This flight will be one of our most sustainably designed.
Currently, we are working to reduce our carbon footprint and would like to invite you to join us.
We use recycled old magazines and newspapers to make them.
And first to have that concept of from farm to fork.
Means that the aircraft engines will be working less and the wings will be working more.
That is such an interesting video, but now, before we move on to the next questions to Robin, I would like to ask our audience what the barriers are to adopting sustainability as they see them. Breaking old habits, cost or pricing, convenience and availability, or herd mentality to stay in the same lane. You can answer the poll. Questions. Okay. Breaking old habits. So the poll results are interesting, aren't they, Robin? Breaking old habits. What are the barriers that prevent the adoption of change for sustainability as you see them?
Great. Well, I think there are fundamentally three things, and it's interesting that the breaking of old habits is mentioned as one of the key things we need for that. But I think there are three things, at least that's what we experienced with the Sustainable Flight Challenge. The first is that we lack resonance, and resonance has two sides. It means that some people no longer feel that they are part of the world, but they see it as a resource for their own benefits. And usually these are the types of people that steer our world and organizations, like top managers. Others don't feel their actions have influence over the world around them. So they lack self-efficacy. And that's usually the people from the shop floors. And I used to be one of them, I can tell you. And we need both to adopt change. So we need to make sure that our decision makers feel less detached from the world that they're deciding about. And we need to empower everyone to have self-efficacy because everyone's actions matter. And we've seen that and proven that with the Sustainable Flight Challenge, where with one flight or a set of flights, the combination of all these flights, we managed to improve by 15% compared to ourselves, and even 30% compared to the industry average when it comes to CO2 emissions. So it's possible if everyone contributes. So that's just one. The second is that I think we lack insight, knowledge, experience. So we need to enable people by making sure that they have all these things available. If we don't know what we need to solve because we lack the insights, or if we are biased by our internal views, and we think that we're doing quite okay, and you top that with a poor understanding of the reality or not even being aware of the existing solutions out there, you will find yourself in a situation where you're unable to deliver change. So through TSFC, we try to give that. We give access to best practices, experts, outside views to challenge our own biases. Mm-hmm. And the last one, and I think this is very human, is that we lack priority. And willingness, because priority is a decision always. So this has to do with willingness. And there the habits is interesting because if we decide what we always decide or feel like we can't make any changes, then that will stick around, obviously. So the willingness of influential people to allocate time, dedication, and resources to a goal, and realize again that for that they need to feel part of the world and less detached. And we noticed that the Sustainable Flight Challenge, because of the competitive element, made CEOs put different priorities to the sustainability topic in their companies and actually allowed people to make their contributions. So long answer short, you need to be willing, you need to be able, and for that you probably also need a different view on the world and yourself.
Okay, so to break the old habit, we have to be empowered, we have to be enabled, and we have to have priority based on willingness, right? Now,
Yes.
You talk about organizations treating sustainability like safety. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, this blows my mind. If you look at it, aviation is, we as industry are super proud that flying is the safest form of transport in the world. And there's a reason for that, because every safety incident that happens around the world is analyzed and recommendations and adjustments are made, shared and adopted industry-wide, which is a fabulous concept because we put the benefit of all before our own individual gains and benefits. So we said to ourselves, what if we started to treat sustainability like that? This means that we create collective learning through that open source sharing and collaboration, and in that way become the most sustainable form of transport and not just the safest.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Lastly, any tips you want to share with our viewers to help them on their own sustainability journey?
Yeah, so what I've learned is that you need to influence the circumstances that you are in, and you have more self-efficacy than you might feel. So just before I started this position, I lacked resonance myself too. I lacked self-efficacy. I was an eager One Young World ambassador, came home, inspired to raise my voice, but I felt I had very little influence over the degree of sustainability in our company. But by raising my voice and by understanding that my actions, even though they're small, have a big impact, yeah, I was heard, I was seen, and with a bit of luck, the stars aligned and our top management felt enough part of the world to allow me to take on this challenge. They believed in it. So don't give up. Your actions, small and big, matter.
Thank you so much, Robin. So it must come from ourselves within our own willingness, yeah? Thank you, Robin. It is great to see the positive impact that you are achieving and the difference you are striving to make in the aviation sector. Next up, we have Wen Yu Wang, a clean energy and climate response principal consultant at PA Consulting. Wen Yu is an experienced consultant and strategist in low carbon energy and infrastructure. She works across a wide range of commercial, economic, financial, technical, and regulatory issues across energy, sustainability, and business. Through her work, she engaged with the whole ecosystem of stakeholders required for urgent climate action: innovators, OEMs, corporates, investors, consumers, international development organizations, civil society, and governments. Outside of her consulting career, she is also the co-founder of numerous sustainability leadership programs and a strong advocate on issues pertaining to education, reformation, and diversity. Wen Yu, hi.
Hi there, Iqbal.
Hi, how are you, Wen Yu?
Brilliant. Great to be here. Such a pleasure, inspirational and diverse panel. Thank you.
Welcome, Wen Yu. We appreciate you being here, and I'm very interested in board of spectrum of industry you work with. What are the key challenges you face?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Great to see some familiar faces as well on the panel, and always good to see more One Young World ambassadors close to my heart. So my work in sustainability spans across multiple sectors. By means of introduction, I think, rather than give you my boring job description, let me give you some examples of the things I work on. Effectively, what I do is I try to make sure that our use of energy and our use of resources are done in a way that is beneficial, or at the very least non-harmful to our planet and our future generations. And this comes in many different forms. So for example, we help investors and developers in building some of the world's largest offshore wind farms so that the electricity supplied to hundreds and thousands of homes can be green and not done at the cost to our future generation. We also help political, business, and social leaders make the right case and the right arguments to enable green innovation. For example, helping societies adopt more electric vehicles, for example, more smart meters, or just more sustainable food products. Another example would be our work in making sure companies set the right legacy for their actions. And their legacy is not just in the bottom line, but also the lasting impact they have on people's lives. And lastly, I like to describe my work as a matchmaker, not in a traditional sense, but by matchmaking the needs and the requirements between investors and people with good ideas, so that we make sure money flows to the best ideas, ideas that have social environmental good. At the end of the day, financial capital is one of the most powerful forces in the world. We should make sure that it's meritocratically distributed, create a win-win ecosystem where the best ideas are rewarded, not just based on their returns on investment, but based on their returns to society as well. If you're interested in any of the things I talk about, you should become a consultant. I think the challenge we have is getting the right talent into the space. And the challenge we also have is understanding sustainability, because sustainability is simultaneously easy and difficult. It's easy because everyone thinks they understand it, and even more people who don't understand it like to talk about it. But it's difficult because it's very, very difficult to do it right. And it's very difficult to embed this into the fundamental behaviors of individuals and companies. I would say that's the biggest challenge. It is, at the end of the day, getting the right people and talking about sustainability in the right and truthful way.
Now, on your field, stakeholder engagement is very crucial. Do you have any tips for successfully communicating sustainability plans to a variety of internal and external stakeholders?
Yeah, so I would like to take this question one step back, because I think communication is incredibly important to make sure people are aligned, but it's important to align people's interests and incentives even before you start communicating plans, because at the end of the day, other individuals are not just a stepping stone to your goals. And I think many of the challenges you face when communicating sustainability or your motivations of sustainability is often fundamentally psychological. I think first, it's important to understand everyone's needs and understand that even at the end of the day, your leaders have bosses as well. Everyone that you're speaking to has a boss. There is someone they are trying to impress, or there's a certain need they have to fulfill. And even your CEO may have bosses, for example, their shareholders. And their shareholders may have bosses, for example, their families that they need to provide for. So it's important to understand the requirements of the people you speak to, understand their needs, because at the end of the day, they're human. And if you can communicate and align your interests with them, you go a long way in terms of developing your sustainability goals. The second thing is, when I meet people that I disagree with, or I can't comprehend, I don't approach the situation with disdain. I think it is important to approach a situation with curiosity, to really want to understand what drives them and why they behave a certain way. I think if you can align and approach people with curiosity, despite the vast difference that you perceive, that's the most important step that you would make in terms of proceeding towards your sustainability goals.
Okay, at the end of the day, they are still human, right? Our internal and external stakeholders are human. Now, before we move on to look at education, I want to ask the audience. We will show the poll again how much education they have had around the need to change for sustainability. We have the options a lot. My organization has built this into our CPD offering. Some, my organization could do more to educate us or our stakeholders, and none. Have you choose the poll? Okay, the result, lots of you, major of you are saying a lot. My organization has built this into our CPD offering. Very, very interesting, yeah? What do you think needs to happen to education for the future to become more sustainable and resilient?
Well, the first, and this is live unfiltered reaction, is I'm quite surprised 60% of you are pretty positive in that you believe your organization has built this into your CPD offering, because I speak to a lot of people that don't have this opportunity. So the first thing would be to take advantage of this opportunity if you do indeed have the opportunity. I think the second task, and this is incumbent upon all of us, is to make sure we better understand the path ahead if we're interested in sustainability. I think many young and incredibly ambitious and talented individuals do not see the full spectrum of careers that they can pursue if they're interested in sustainability. And at the end of the day, sustainability is not one space, it's not one sector. It's a fundamental cultural code that can be embedded into every industry and every sector that you choose to work in. I can say, for example, that I studied medicine. And that would be surprising because it doesn't seem to have any correlation to what I do today. But studying science or studying psychology or studying accounting or studying finance or studying politics all can play a significant role in accelerating our world towards a low carbon sustainable future. Indeed, the team I work with today have individuals that come from all aspects of backgrounds in society. So it's important not to think about sustainability as a thing, but as an embedded set of behaviors and goals that everyone can pursue. And I think a lot more individuals in the sustainability space need to role model and help young people understand the careers that they can pursue ahead of them. For example, if you look at my fellow panels, whether it is the work that they do on Repurpose Global or the Sustainable Flight Challenge, we're all doing something on sustainability in very different ways. And it's important to understand that. The last thing I would just say is it's completely possible to do well by doing good. Because at the end of the day, you can make a great career out of sustainability, where you're compensated well, where you're intellectually challenged, where you have great goals to work towards. And we should see that as just as much of a valid career as being a lawyer, being a doctor, being an engineer, for example.
I really like that word when you sustainability embedded in every aspect of behavior. Now, finally, do you have any tips you want to share with our viewers to help them on their own sustainability journey?
Sure, thank you, Iqbal. I think individual change is a responsibility, and we should all think about the ways in which we can live our lives in a much more sustainable manner. But at the end of the day, institutional change is what really matters. It is what moves the needle. And therefore, institutional change is more than a responsibility, it is a mission. You are a function of your behavior, but your organization, your school, your company, your society is the aggregated function of all of you, and you all have a part and ability to play a part. I really like how Robin talked about sustainability as safety in the mindset of aviation. And I like to talk about sustainability on top of that as a cultural code. It is a culture in the sense that it should be deeply embedded into our moral system and what we expect from society and from ourselves. It should also be a code in the sense that it's not good enough to just think about it and talk about it. It needs to be codified into rules and systems so that people who don't necessarily always think about it have to follow it anyways. And this is a big job, I think, especially I'm talking to a lot of chartered accountants. It's important that we think about the truth that we say about companies, but the truth is not just a financial statement. The truth is the impact they have on our society. We need to help society understand the truth of companies, and you all play a big role in that.
Thank you so much, Wenyu. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to introduce you to Svanika Balasubramainan. Svanika is the co-founder and CEO of Repurpose Global, the world's leading plastic action platform dedicated to making environmental action accessible to people and companies around the world. Repurpose Global is creating environmental impact for 250 plus purposeful brands, ranging from up-and-coming SMEs to global Fortune 500s. On behalf of their global coalition, Repurpose now recovers over 14 million pounds of plastic waste every year, and in doing so, positively impact 10,000 marginalized waste workers and community members across Asia, Africa, and South America. Svanika, thank you so much for being here. First, I'd like you to take us on the journey you embarked on that led you set up for Repurpose.
Yeah, thank you so much, Iqbal, and thank you all of you for being here today. It's a true pleasure to see everyone come together from all over the world. I'm absolutely thrilled by it. I'm joining you today from London. Apologies for my kitchen. We have tube strikes over here. But yes, I'm Svanika Balasubramanian. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Repurpose Global. And when we set out on this journey, we were actually not looking to set up a social enterprise. In many ways, I actually think we were solving an accounting problem. So I went to undergrad in Philadelphia at Penn. I studied business and I was doing I was minoring in business analytics and accounting and all of these different pieces. And my senior year, a couple of my classmates and I decided to account for our plastic waste. We said all of these companies are putting out plastic into the environment. You have CPGs that are producing plastic packaging. And my fun fact for today is that by the time I finish this sentence, over 100,000 pounds of plastic waste will be created. And over 90% of it is not technically accounted for because it leaks into nature. And these are just kind of like, again, it's such a black box when we say, well, it leaks into nature. Where does it go, right? And a lot of the waste that we produce in places like the US and Canada and the UK and so on end up being put on a ship and sent halfway across the world to Ghana, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines, and all of these different countries. And then there's, again, no accounting when it reaches there. And that's how you get all of this waste flowing into the ocean. And so I spent an entire year, quite literally going from landfill to landfill, garbage dump to garbage dump, from South America to Africa to Asia, and you were seeing the same kind of problem repeat itself over and over again when, in the absence of proper measurement and protocols, when something doesn't get accounted for, it doesn't get actually dealt with in an ethical way, in an environmentally sustainable way. And so at the end of that, we created kind of this new financing instrument called a plastic credit, where we took inspiration from the carbon credit market, which had been really revolutionary in unlocking private sector capital to account for their carbon emissions and then investing it in measurable climate change initiatives. We brought that kind of language into the plastic space, where one plastic credit is essentially the equivalent of 1 kilogram of plastic waste that is removed from nature that otherwise would have ended up in a landfill or in the ocean or so on. And so now we kind of, do two different sorts of accounting over here. On the one end, we help businesses, the CPGs of the world, measure their plastic footprint and, disclose it, and in thinking about the boundaries, scope 1, scope 2 equivalents in plastic. And on the other end, we measure the impact that we're able to create through investments of plastic credit. So that if we're talking about anything from, in Indonesia, for instance, we're in Bali, Bekasi, Bandung, all of these different areas, we're removing plastic from there by working with, say, fishermen and local entrepreneurs. And then we're doing something similar in Ghana and Colombia and, like the Dominican Republic. All of these places now have a standardized way of measurement. So these are no longer just disparate, different things that are happening all around the world, but rather part of one common metric, one common kind of language that we're all able to speak. And so that is to say, I never came into any of this with that accounting mindset. But I truly strongly believe that if you take any problem in the world, you can't change what you don't understand, and you can't understand what you can't measure. And then that's really where kind of, the science of accounting becomes so important for us. But yeah, that's my long story of how we got here.
Okay, Swanika, you mentioned several cities in Indonesia with high volume of trash, right? I think it's because, our participants said, old habits die hard. So how difficult was it to change people's mind in favor of sustainability?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think in many ways the consumer sentiment is changing quite rapidly. I think even 5 years ago, it was a completely different narrative than what we have here today. And for us, we're a B2B organization. So our job is actually to change the mindset of CPGs, who in turn were influenced by the mindset of consumers that they were selling to. And even 5 years ago, typically the environmental I have to do that is mutually exclusive from kind of like, the actual work that I need to do to grow my company. But today, because so many consumers have started voting with their dollars, and this is really, I think, like every action, every purchase that you're making, it's really an act of voting where you vote with your dollars for the sustainable option. You're saying, I would rather pick this product instead of this product because this is more sustainable. And all of that sends signals to the brands themselves, to the CPGs, saying that consumers are changing. And now it's no longer a question of, do I make this investment in sustainability? It's, you have to make that investment if you want to keep your company alive for the next 5 years, 10 years, if you want the Gen Zs to kind of like start adopting your product. And so I think that sort of huge well, that the wave of kind of interest from the consumers and their shopping decisions have definitely gone a long way in pushing brands to actually do the right things as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, before we move on to talk about circular economy, I wanted to ask the audience what they understand by the term of circular economy. We have the options. I understand what a circular economy is and why it matters. I've heard the term, but I'm not sure what it is exactly. I've never heard of a circular economy and don't know what it is. You can choose on the poll. Okay, do we have the result? We're giving you several more seconds to fill in the poll. Circular economy. You understand what it is and why it matters. You've never heard the term, or you've heard the term but not sure what it is exactly. Okay, thank you so much, audience. 52% of the audience said that they understand what a circular economy is and why it is matter. It is very interesting, right, Swanika? Can you explain briefly how a circular economy works and how they fit into the sustainability debate?
Yeah, for sure. I think circular economy is a fascinating topic that is so important because the way I see it, nature has figured out the best design solutions, right? When we have organic material, when, you know, whether it's trees or animals, when the life cycle kind of like feeds into each other. So the birth and, you know, kind of like the life and the death of like any natural organism feeds into the life of another one, right? So it is kind of like circular in nature. So nature doesn't have a design problem, but we do. When we came up and started making a lot of these products and we started expanding what we do, we did not build that final piece. So we have the birth of a product. So let's say kind of like you know, a soda, for instance, right? We have the birth of the product, the things that go inside it, the plastic bottle that it comes in. We have the consumption piece, which is kind of like, okay, now we're drinking the soda, and then we put it in the bin and it goes into a landfill or it goes into the river or the ocean, and it never gets back into anything else, right? It just dies right there. And that's what we call a linear economy. So it just kind of like is birth, life, death, and there's nothing connecting it back into the life cycle piece of it. And then so we can't keep producing more and more because eventually, you know, I think that this is a crazy statistic that I was hearing, that total mass of things on the planet today is bigger, is heavier than the mass of life on the planet. We have more things that are solid than life that is breathing. And then so eventually you're just going to run out of space, and that's going to create all of these, you know, different sorts of environmental problems as well. So the ideal sort of design should be if we're able to, you know, take that back and make it into another product. And that's where things like recycling come in, things like reuse come in. And then so that's where you're basically, you know, taking something that is deemed to be of no use, and you're finding a different use for it and putting it back into the economy. And this is not just good for the environment. This makes perfect economical sense. If you can reuse something instead of making something fresh, it's cheaper. And then so it will end up being kind of economically more viable for companies as well.
Okay, so it's actually get many benefits from it, yeah? Okay, any tips you want to share with our viewers to help them on their own sustainability journey, Swanika? Go ahead.
Yes, I think that this is something that I've held true with me for a very long time. Don't aim for perfection, because I think the biggest barrier to progress is often the pursuit of perfection. So if you think I can only be sustainable if I'm vegan, I cut out all meat, I cut out all animal products, I have to shop sustainably, I have to take my cloth bag with me every single time that I go out to make all of these decisions. That's so much that you have to remember every single day. And then if you think, okay, so I'm not going to do all of that, so I'm not going to do not anything, right? Then that's actually kind of, not moving the needle forward. So whatever you remember to do, even if it's one thing a day, that still adds up. That's still progress, right? Even though you're not kind of perfect. And so my kind of call to everybody over here, when you're considering, we all know that veganism, for instance, or vegetarianism, or cutting out animal meat consumption is probably one of the most sustainable things we can do. Don't even think about doing it every day of your life, right? Maybe start with saying 2 days of the week I'll be vegetarian, and then maybe it's 5 days of the week I'll be vegetarian, and then it kind of like slowly goes forward. And that's still better than just saying, oh, being vegetarian is really hard, so I'm just not going to try it at all. And that kind of principle applies for every single sustainable practice that we have in life. Progress is better than perfection.
Progress is better than perfection, taking baby steps. Thank you so much, Vanika. Finally, I would like to introduce you to Jonathan Labrie. Jonathan is Chief Connectivity and Integrated Reporting Officer at the IFRS Foundation, leading the team responsible for the technical development and market adoption of the Integrated Reporting Framework and Integrated Thinking Principles. He has over 17 years of experience working in public policy, corporate governance, and regulation in the accountancy and corporate reporting fields. Jonathan, it is an honor to have you here. So thank you so much for being here. I am keen to understand more about your role at the IFRS and the organization itself. Can you explain, Jonathan?
I can, thank you, Iqbal, and I'm delighted to contribute to FinBiz2030 today, and thank you to the Institute of Accountants in Indonesia for hosting the event. I'm joining from our London offices, the London offices of the IFRS Foundation. We're home to two independent standard setting boards that will be familiar, I think, for most of the delegates on the call today: National Accounting Standards Board and the newly formed International Sustainability Standards Board. And what we're about at the IFRS Foundation is improving the information system, particularly for capital markets. That's information that we hope and intend will improve the quality of decision-making through the ecosystem of corporate governance and corporate reporting. I'd like to say, well, if I could, just a few words about some of the global megatrends that are really influencing the change in the sustainability world across the corporate reporting landscape today. And I just draw upon four major publications and trends that I think reflect the global megatrends that we're seeing today and that are influencing our work at the IFRS Foundation. Firstly, if you look at the annual World Economic Forum Global Risks Reports that look at every year from 2008 onwards at the risks that are affecting the global economy, what we've seen there is a massive shift over the last 10 years from factors that are influenced by short-term financial risks now to risks that are affecting climate change, extreme weather, political risk, and inequality. So we know that the nature of risk and the nature of value in our economy has changed and evolved radically over the last decade. And so how we measure and disclose information needs to evolve in order to take account of that changing risk and value profile. Secondly, the PwC CEO survey points to the fact that chief executive officers of our major corporates around the world know that they need information to drive better decisions in their corporate governance. They know that they need information about climate risk, other sustainability risks, issues about employment practices through the supply chain. Yet what that PwC survey shows is that CEOs feel that they don't have the data available to them to allocate capital and allocate decisions effectively. So we need to focus on data. We need to focus on providing information to improve corporate governance and corporate reporting. Third, and this relates to a point that Svanika made earlier about the changing needs of millennials and Generation Z. The Deloitte millennial survey, now in its 11th year, shows that what the next generation are looking for is purposeful work. They are focused on driving societal change, and they are using their own economic power to invest with sustainability in mind. So if you have a business and you're interested in sustaining your business model over the long term, you need to look at the behavioral aspects of the next generation to sustain your business model and your strategy into the long term. And it's all set out in those brilliant Deloitte millennial surveys. And finally, we have the annual Edelman Trust Barometer that shows that while trust in institutions is low, the expectations of business to drive societal and environmental change is high. So business have a responsibility, and there is an expectation by stakeholders globally that business will take a lead in driving that societal change. Now, they need the tools to do that. They need the systems to change. And the APAFest Foundation is about providing the information, the foundation of information, to help better decision-making by businesses and by investors. And of course, the accountancy profession plays an absolutely vital role as business leaders, finance professionals, advisors, providers of assurance, and audit services, almost uniquely placed as a profession to be across that ecosystem to address these issues and to drive change for sustainability. So how is the sustainability disclosure landscape changing? Well, first of all, we've seen over the last 2 years institutional consolidation, fewer acronyms in the alphabet soup of sustainability disclosure standards, as the APAFest Foundation has now consolidated with organizations such as the International Integrated Reporting Council, the Climate Disclosure Standards Board, and the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. These voluntary initiatives that have developed over the last 10 years, now consolidated in one place under the remit and umbrella of the APAFest Foundation. The new International Sustainability Standards Board, launched last year at COP26 in Glasgow, now marking its first anniversary at COP27 in Egypt this week, is setting and establishing a global baseline for sustainability disclosure standards for capital markets for the first time. And this week at COP27, we're establishing a new partnership agreement so that the global south, the emerging and developing economies of the world across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, can take a lead in adopting these new global sustainability standards in order to build capacity and attract investment into those markets for the future. And finally, we are developing collaborative agreements with organizations across the corporate reporting system. Never again can this be a competitive landscape. It must be a landscape of cooperation and collaboration so that we achieve interoperability between standards that are focused on the capital markets, on investors, and those standards focused on impact and about understanding the impact of business on the environment and society. These are not competing visions. They are compatible with one another, and we must work as one system in order to achieve a global corporate reporting system. And this really, Iqbal, in conclusion, is the opportunity that we face. Connectivity between accounting information and sustainability information, closing that gap between finance and the way the world is operating and the needs of policymakers and others to drive that global system. A long-term vision of a corporate reporting framework based on integrated reporting so that we see the interdependencies between the resources and relationships that businesses use every day in their mainstream corporate governance. We need decision-useful information for the chief executives and boards of companies, as well as the institutional investors who allocate capital every day. We want those businesses to be able to allocate capital in a sustainable and purposeful way. Of course we do. And that all leads to one globally accepted and comprehensive corporate reporting system. Let's end the silos in our corporate reporting world and in our business world. Let's join these initiatives together and let's develop that comprehensive corporate reporting system. And what every generation has shown us is that when the accountancy profession gets behind these global trends and initiatives, they can use their expertise and that breadth of knowledge across the economic system, their independence of judgment, their integrity, and their rigorous focus on measurement in order to provide the leadership necessary to promote this change, which is so desperately needed in our world today. Thank you, Iqbal.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. You actually answered the thing that I want to ask you, because lots of people asking about how does the alignment works, and how hard it is for you to change the mind of regulators, but you already answered that. Thank you so much for that. But I have one question for you, Jonathan. Is there any tips that you want to share with us to the viewers to help them on their own sustainability journey?
I think, Iqbal, the best tip that I can give is what we're doing in the APAFest Foundation is not creating something new. There's been an incredible investment over the last decade by businesses, investors, NGOs, professionals, regulators in developing the standards, the systems, the frameworks that are needed. What's happened over the last 10 years is that they've been adopted in a piecemeal and fragmented way because most of those initiatives have been voluntary initiatives. What we now have under the umbrella of the APAFest Foundation is the opportunity to consolidate and use the strength of the Foundation's adoption of its accounting standards in over 140 markets to now develop the same baseline of sustainability disclosure standards across 140 markets in a short period of time. So what I would say is that we're building disclosure standards on existing practices, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, on existing standards like the SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board standards, and frameworks like integrated reporting and the CDSB framework. So my tip would be, get going, get started. The resources are there for companies to get started, for the accountancy profession to advise companies to get started and to start that journey now, because the whole world cannot wait for the brilliant standards that will be produced over the next few years. We have got those technical resources available. And so my tip would be, let's get started and get started now on this journey.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Action speaks louder than words, isn't it? So thank you so much, Jonathan, for your last words. Now I'm going to bring back all of our panelists. We've got Robin, we've got Wenyu, we've got Svanika and Jonathan. Are all in the screen right now? Okay. We had some questions from the wonderful audience for our speaker. The first question, what is the role of the chartered accountant in getting organizations, not just in private, but also the public and third sectors, to embrace sustainability and change the way their business is running? I think they're supposed to go to Jonathan, isn't it?
Very happy to answer that. And as I said in my remarks, I think the accountancy profession is uniquely placed in this regard because of its breadth and because particularly of the way it engages with business. Now, my advice would be, one way of getting going here would be for the chief financial officer of companies to really take ownership of this agenda, because what we want is for this information to be embedded within the dashboard of information that is used in the mainstream governance of organizations. We have had a system over the last few years where quite often sustainability information has been siloed off into a separate department that is separate from the way companies are actually governed. And what we want is for sustainability information to be part of the mainstream governance, the mainstream information and data that CEOs and CFOs are using so that they can assess risk, but also opportunity. How are they developing their business models to take advantage of innovation and achieve increased value over the short, medium, and long term in a sustainable way? So it's absolutely critical that the accountancy profession owns this agenda. The best way of doing that is for the CFO to take charge. Convene a meeting of all the heads of your departments in the companies that you're either advising or part of, the head of HR, the head of sustainability, the head of strategy, the head of internal audit, and ask the question, what is our business model? What is our strategy? And in our experience, what happens is, if you've got 10 people in a room, you get 10 different strategies or 10 different business models back from the people around that table. The organization isn't practicing integrated thinking. They're operating in silos. So the first step, I think, if you're looking for really practical action from the CFO, is bring and align your business around one business model and one strategy, because that will help you to take decisions in the long term.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Is there any comment from the other panelists? Robin, Svanika, Wenyu?
Oh, it's fantastic. This answer, it's as if he's describing KLM, for example, the siloed way of operating. I recognize it in every sense, and that's just the company. And we're also seeing how we can expand that to an industry-wide initiative. But I can fully support whatever Jonathan was just explaining. I truly believe that's the way to go forward.
Thank you so much, Robin. Svanika, when you something to add?
Couldn't have said it better.
Svanika, you agree with us, right?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I think that was brilliant. I don't have anything to add on that.
Thank you so much. Is there any last words from our panelists to our viewers? Anything you want to add to our viewers, panelists?
I can maybe kick us off. I think just to reiterate a lot of what has been talked about today, there is this sense that things need to be integrated, things need to have a common language, and things need to be accounted for, because you really can't begin to change things that live in chaos, right? And I think for so long, so much of our, sustainability responsibilities of the private sector has remained hidden in the chaos, in the absence of structure and accounting. And so I think that's a generalized way of saying that there's a lot of responsibility that everyone, all of the viewers hold, to bring that visibility and then kind of frameworks and methodology and integrate it into the day-to-day of the organization. And that holds true whether we're talking about climate, whether we're talking about the work we do on plastic. It doesn't matter. It all kind of follows the same principles on the ground.
Thank you so much, Svanika. Jonathan, anything to add? Go ahead.
Yeah, my only concluding remark would be to say that this isn't going to be easy. This actually won't be easy, because what we're talking about, all the people on this panel, is actually changing decades of practice, whether that's corporate, whether that's regulation, law, practice, all the cultural issues that we're all aware of in our own organizations. But what I would say is that it's really important to look at any of the challenges that come up, not as barriers, because barriers can't often be overcome, or they're very, very difficult to overcome. But we've got to think of them as hurdles that we can overcome. And I think if we can work together as kind of the leaders with the accountancy profession to provide the tools to really help us to get this transition underway, then I think we can start believing that there aren't these insurmountable barriers, that we can change the broader ecosystem, we can change the assurance rules, or we can develop the technology that will help get the data through business, and so that we can improve corporate governance and so on. We can get the standards. So I think thinking about these things from a perspective of not erecting insurmountable barriers to progress, but working together to develop tools so that those barriers become hurdles that we overcome on this journey of progress, because we need to make progress quickly. And I would end on that point, I think.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Robin, any last words for us?
Go kick some ass. Go change the world. keep your job, indeed.
Yeah, and absolutely fantastic. Thanks for having us. Just a quick thing from me. I'm a strong believer in doubling down on your strength. A lot of people think sustainability is something I can't do. That's outside my area of expertise. I think Jonathan has very compelling put forward a case for the exceptionalism of the accounting profession and the difference that you can make. You don't have to be someone new in a cheesy way. You can be yourself and make a difference already. You just need to apply your efforts in the right way. So double down on your strength. I think there's something out there. We will need your help.
Thank you so much, Wenyu. And we know that we need your help, our viewers, to make a better way for our sustainable change. And that brings us to the end of the panel discussion. I wish we could have more time during these panels, especially with this fantastic group of panels. Thank you so much, Robin, Jonathan, Svanika, Wenyu. Thank you so much for your brilliant insight. We know that it is very, very short time, but we know that you've been very, very busy. So thank you. Once again, thank you so much. And it has been truly amazing to hear from our speakers today who have given us so much energy and motivation. Thank you to you all who have joined us. And now we'll invite all of you to watch a video. This one is a very special announcement to share with us all the winners of the APAFest 2022.
Sustainability atau keberlanjutan telah menjadi aspek penting dalam upaya membangun masa depan ekonomi Indonesia. Dan profesi akuntan insya Allah selalu menjadi aktor utama dalam prosesnya.
Be the change you wish to see in the world. Jadi kalau kita ingin lihat perubahan, ya kita sendiri juga harus menjadi bagian daripada perubahan itu.
Mungkin di masa yang akan datang memastikan bahwa apa yang mereka laporkan itu adalah sesuatu yang reliable gitu ya, yang punya integrity, sehingga mungkin ada proses kayak semacam audit juga. Nah di situ adalah perannya akuntan.
Change for sustainability. Change for sustainability. One word to describe is variable.
Let's be accountable, responsible, and sustainable.
Because sustainability is the future.
According to me, the word is future.
A huge congratulations to the winners, and I know that the competition was very strong this year. Well done to all of you who applied, and thank you so much for participating. This has given us immense confidence that the future of the profession is in good hands. Today has been a leadership masterclass led by some exceptional changemakers in the business and finance industry. It is evident from listening to them today that it is our responsibility to lead, and to lead with purpose to create a more resilient and sustainable future. We hope that you have enjoyed the session today as much as we have. If you want to join FinBiz2030, please sign up to the newsletter. To those of you who need e-certificate, we would like you to join our online survey and choose the right keywords. Change for sustainability. Okay? Last but not least, we encourage you to share your favorite quotes from the moment, from the event by adding the hashtag FinBiz2030 by tagging us in your post. You can put that at One Young World, at Chartered WW, and at IAI News. Hashtag FinBiz2030. A huge thank you to all of our speakers today, and also a huge thank you to our partners at Big Top Multimedia and A1 for bringing this event to life. See you next time.